Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be working on something very, very near and dear to my heart, music theory. So music theory is something I've pretty extensively worked on for about, 3 years? About 3 years, nearing there at least. And so I've run through all the books, Vincent Persichetti, 20th Century Harmony, all his good stuff. And pretty much anything else you can think of. I've just kind of run through it all. And so I enjoy it. And so I want to pass on what I believe is the beginner knowledge. The things that I think every beginner should know. So I'm using a program called MuseScore. And so I'm just going to quickly set everything up to how it should be. And there we are. So here we have sheet music, a beautiful, beautiful thing that you will learn to hate, and then love, then hate again because you're sick of using it. And so, basically the whole concept of this is each of these section thingies here will show you what to do. So if you, for example, let's just throw in some random notes. Let's say we just throw that in. So if you know nothing about music, that makes no sense. So what that means is you would play on time in the 120 beats per minute. You would play an F, a C, an E, and an A. Or a G, sorry. I say I'm good at theory and then screw up a note. But we all make mistakes. And so pretty much that's what this entire thing here does. It just tells you what notes to play, how to play them, and you can literally play any song without ever hearing it. That's where the benefit is for this over tabs. With tabs, you cannot learn a song without hearing it. You cannot do that. Someone can't hand you Autumn Leaves done by an arrangement you've never heard, and then you can just sit and play it. If someone hands you sheet music for Autumn Leaves for an arrangement you've never heard, you can read the rhythms, you can read the notes, and then you can play it. So that's why sheet music is better than tabs. And so now we're going to run through some of the names of things. So these lines here, so this is the staff. So these are where all your notes are going to go. So there will be notes. I'm not going to get into it in this lesson, but there will be notes that are like up here and down here and all these sorts of places all over the map. So just because those are there doesn't mean the notes are any different. There is only 12 notes. No matter where you are on your instrument, on a piano, on a guitar, on a flute, it doesn't matter. There is only 12 notes. So that is known as the chromatic scale. Alright, so I just wrote this in. So this here, what you're looking at, these notes, is what is called a chromatic scale. So these are the 12 notes in all of music. So there's obviously different types of music. If you go to some Asian countries, there will be different notes for what they consider their full chromatic scale. So the technical term for a chromatic scale, or not chromatic scale, at least the tuning that this is called 12-tone equal temperament, which is way too advanced for this lesson. But that's what I meant by that you can get into different tunings in this, because then you have like 10-tone equal temperament, where there's only 10 notes in this opposed to 12, and the notes are different. It's just all how the mathematical equations are arranged. So basically what we have here is a C, but then a C sharp. So if you look at a keyboard, you'll notice it going up from the white key to the black key, which is the sharp, back to a white key, then a black key, white key. And so if you notice, there's no sharp on this one. That's because this is the one where there is no black key between it. So then you just go white key, then black key, white key, black key, white key, black key, white key, and then white key. And so that is kind of the basis of everything musical, at least note-wise. So if we take away all these sharps, like take away all the notes that have sharps, we would be left with this. This is a C major scale. It starts on a C, and it ends on a C. And so, since now I've run through all of these, and we're going to let you know the note names: C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then finally C again. And so those are all the note names. There will be a link in the description to this entire sheet that I have with all the different components and scales and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of help you out. I'm also making a little write-up sheet later that I will eventually link in the description. It won't be there right away, but if you come back in about a week or so, you'll have a full thing with far more detailed sheet music to really help you out. So what a C major scale is on a piano, if you start on a C, it's all the white keys up to the next C. So that is a 1-octave scale. And so once you have, your 1-octave scale down, so let's say we want to do the F major scale, so starting on an F. So we would go like this, but you notice right here, I'm going to show you something really cool that'll help you out with forming these scales. So the distance between here and here is called a tone, or a whole step. So the way that you remember this is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And so that's like going white, white, black. So that's going from the E to the F. Or, I'm going to erase that. So that's pretty much like going, in a sense, one whole tone, a half tone, a whole tone, a whole tone, a whole tone, and then a half tone. So that's your C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So if you notice on this one, we're going tone, 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 and so now we're on the B, so then that's semitone, and then we go tone, tone, semitone, which is reversed of what this is. So it should be tone, tone, semitone. So this should be a semitone. But how do you make a semitone between a and a B? Well, you make this a B flat. So what a flat and a sharp does is a flat will lower the pitch a half a step, and a sharp will raise the pitch a half a step. So if we go from a B and lower it a half step, it's now a B flat. If we raise it a half step, in this case, this is a bad one to do. So let's do G. So if we go down a half step, we have G flat. If we go up a half step with a sharp, now we have G sharp. So that's kind of how that works. So now I'm just going to remove this, which makes it now natural, which, actually I should tell you that this here doesn't change this note, obviously, because that's a natural. So the reason you would use a natural is, let's say you have, let's say this note, and this note is a sharp. Or no. And we say this note here is a sharp. So here you have a C sharp. But the next note after is supposed to be just a regular C. So if you keep that like that, in one measure, if you add a sharp, for that one measure, every C that you play now will be a sharp until the next measure starts. So this same principle works with every single note, no matter what, whether it's a sharp or a flat, it doesn't matter. It'll always be like that. So the way that you make this note a C again is by putting a natural. So I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but if you look down here, it says C3. So that note there is a C3. If we look and it changes, now it's a C sharp. So that's the only way we can change it. So let's say we remove this and click this note. So we have a C sharp. Click this next one, it's still a C sharp. So that's the kind of basic principle behind that. So now we're going to get onto a really easy way for not having to, with this F major, for example, have to put in a B flat. Because that's just, if you have to put a B flat in every single time you have a B flat, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be a lot harder to read. And so we have things called key signatures, which are these cool little devices that you can use to put you automatically in that scale. So obviously right now we are in C major, or in my case I set it to atonal or chromatic. So that just means I have to input, no matter what, every single sharp or flat, which works the same as C major. So we're going to call it C major. So let's say we want this right here. We don't want that to stay the same. So we notice this flat here makes this F major. So if we look right under the name there, it says F major or D minor, which is the relative minor of it. And so we can click through and we notice the flat that was on this B flat is now gone, because our key signature says that any B will now automatically have a flat. So with every key signature, it'll do the same thing. So with this one, this one's a big key signature. It has, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 7 flats in it. I don't know why that number didn't come to me right away. Probably because I'm kind of tired right now. But this here is a 7 flat scale, or as better known, C flat major. So let's say we put in the notes of C flat major, just like this, all the way up to C, right there. So let's say we go and we take away this, but we'll keep the notes the same. So the notes in the scale, the C flat major scale, is going to stay the same, but we're going to change it to C major. So what's that going to do? It is going to make every single one of these notes flat, because all the notes before were flat. So, and if you're wondering why it did that, it's just showing that this B that was originally there, this B flat, is now being shown as natural. So there's no longer a B flat from that point on, unless you input it yourself like the program did for me. So now that we have this basic concept down, we're going to remove all of this. And now we're going to talk about actual time. So if we look at this 4/4. So actually, before we get to that, we should do what note values are. So right here, I am inputting something called a quarter note. This one is a half note, which, if you notice already, you can fit more half notes, or not half notes, eighth notes, sorry. You can fit more eighth notes into one measure with the same value than you can quarter notes. And if you take half notes now, you can fit even less in to one measure. And if you take whole notes, you fit even less than that into a measure. So the reason for this is in 4/4, which means 4 quarter notes. So this is the only one that for a lot of people, I for some reason have found that people screw this one up. So 4 is what you do with quarter notes. So you can fit 4 quarter notes. So remember, quarter note will always be the 4. The 4 is always going to be for quarter notes. And so quarter note will equal 1. An eighth note will equal a half of 1. So it's like taking one quarter note and dividing it by 2 and making it half. So if you notice, if we were to clap these rhythms, for example, so I'll audibly say the time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll do that, and then every time that a quarter note would come in, I'll clap it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you notice, on every single beat that I'm saying, I am also clapping. So I play it on that beat. So let's say we take eighth notes, for example. You could call this eighth notes or an eighth note subdivision, which is a more advanced way of saying it, but it all means the same thing. So let's say we do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you notice, I'm playing on every beat, so that 1, 2, 3, 4. But every beat that I'm not saying, I'm playing also on the spaces between the beats. So that 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's basically, it's like adding a note to each measure, in a sense. So now moving on to half notes, the way you would play a half note is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a half note is worth 2 beats. So just to recap, 1 beat, half a beat, 2 beats, and this one is worth 4 beats. So this is a whole note, or they call it a whole note because it takes up a whole measure of 4/4. And so the way that we would use this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. Sorry that I counted it weirdly there. That's just what I'm used to counting when I count measures. So now that we know the values of notes, we can talk about time signatures. So there's all sorts of time signatures. A time signature can really be anything you want. We can have 4/4, 5/4, 7/8, 12/8. Let me throw that in there. 12/8. All of these mean different things. So if we look at this 4/4, and we're going to put all C's. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can fit 4 quarter notes. So with this one, here we can fit 5 quarter notes, if you notice. So this top number just says how many of what you can fit in one measure. So let's say we look at this one that's 7/8, which may look pretty daunting because now we're having a different number at the bottom. But all that bottom number means is it can fit 7/8 notes into a measure. So I'm going to delete that real quick. And so with 7/8 notes, if you remember, an eighth note is worth a half of a quarter note. So you can fit 2 eighth notes into 1 quarter note, at least value-wise, which means you can't fit as many quarter notes into this measure. You can only fit 3 quarter notes and an eighth note. So this happens because this in eighth note time would be 2, 4, 6, and then there's your 7th beat. So this is 2 beats, this is 2 beats, this is 2 beats, and then this is the 7th beat. Whereas this would be 1 beat, 1 beat, 1 beat, all the way through if you only use eighth notes. So that's your kind of basic rundown of what you need rhythmically. Well, not rhythmically, but time-wise. You really, for most people, unless you're going into some weird experimental kind of stuff in prog metal or jazz or things like that, most of the time you won't really go at a 4/4 or 3/4 at most. Just because those are kind of standards. If you listen to pretty much any pop music ever, it'll be in 4/4. Even a lot of classical music is in 4/4 or 3/4. 3/4 is predominantly used as like a waltz kind of thing. So that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that kind of waltzy feel. So now we're going to move on to what to do with notes, and those are called chords. So if you notice, you'll sometimes see stuff like this, where it has these values. So this is a C major chord, which is built up of C, E, and G. So these are those C, G, and E notes that we were showing off earlier. So pretty much what this does is it makes a chord, or what we call a triad. So a triad is something that's built up of 3 notes. So you have the C, E, and G, your 3 notes that build up a triad. So triads are really cool because they can create a thing called inversions, which sounds confusing, but it really isn't. So if you notice, oh, I screwed that up. Let me adjust that. So if you notice, this C, you have the C, E, and G. This has the exact same notes. Only difference is we took this bottom C and moved it up 1 octave. So an octave is the full 12 semitones. So if you go 12 semitones up from C, you'll get to C. And that's how an octave works. It's the same note except 12 semitones up. And so for triads and inversions, you take this triad of 3 notes, and then you take the bottom note and move it up an octave. So obviously for this next triad, which you call second inversion, we would move this E up. So now it's there. So that is your E moved up from down here up to there. So this is your root inversion, your first inversion, second inversion, but then you notice once we hit here, now we are at that C major one more time, just an octave up now. So all of these use the same notes. This works for any chord you use. It doesn't matter whether it's C major, C minor, A major, A minor, C sharp major, B flat major. It doesn't matter. The same principle works for basic triads and inversions. So obviously you can have far more extensive chords, like if we take the C major we had before, and if we count up those whole tones and half tones that we were doing before, those tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and then there you go. You're at your octave. So if we count up that, they have values, which I'm going to show you right now. So if we take this C right here, or that's not a C, let me adjust that. So if we take a C right here and put a note above it, 1 tone up. So this is only a tone up, so C to D. That is called a second. So that's going 1, 2. And that's your second. So let's say we do another, but go up another tone to E. That's called a third. So if we do it for another one, So that's C to F. That's called a fourth. So for a major second, you would go C, C sharp, then your second. So that's 2 semitones up. So you start on the C, 1, 2, and now you're at your next note. With a major third, you start on your C, 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones up, and now you're at your E. We start on C for the major fourth, start on the C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now you have a fourth in semitones. So let's say we do something called a seventh, which would take us C to B. So that would be 11 semitones. So if we start on the C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now we're at this seventh chord, seventh interval. And so this works all the way up from you have major second, major third, major fourth, perfect fifth, or I'm forgetting the names, I'm sorry. So major second, perfect third, major fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and then the perfect octave, which is the C to C. And so if we want to take a chord and add what would be considered this seventh, or the B, and add that onto there, we now have something called a seventh chord. So this is now went from C to C major 7. And so if you do anything jazz or a little more trickier in music as playing wise, you will find a lot of the times that you'll find seventh chords, or even if we go like this and add another one on, the D, ninth chords, and things like that. Obviously, you can go on forever. You can have C major 13 chords, or things like that, or C suspended 6, 9 chords. Just lots of crazy chords can happen. So now that we've done time signatures, our keys, our notes, intervals, we've learned about chords and triads and inversions. Now the last thing that you would have to really know about is rhythms. So I kind of got into it a little bit with the values of notes. So with this, how you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, that's the most simple of rhythms. So now let's try something a little harder. So we're going to combine quarter notes with half notes. So let's say we want to play this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So because this is worth 2, you will hold that for 2 beats. Whereas this is only worth 1, so you'll hold it for 1 beat. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's say we try something with 8th notes. So let's say we do this. So the way you would play this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, if that makes sense. So I'll play it twice for you so that you get an idea of what we're looking at. So we're starting on this one, on this note, and it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Well, I missed that clap. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is your first beat. This would be your second beat, and this would be your third beat, which gets held for 2. So hopefully that makes sense. This video's run quite a bit long, but hopefully that makes sense for you. And obviously, if you have any questions, please leave them in the description. And I will also be making a bunch of smaller videos going in depth on each topic in this. So I will leave a playlist to that once it's finished, not only on my channel, but also in the description below if you end up seeing this far in the future. So thank you for watching, and have a nice day.